In my last video, I talked about the Armory Pass and how I thought it has significantly less value than similar systems released previously in CSGO. And thank you a lot for the support on that video, by the way. I thought it was going to get like maybe 35 views. It got 2,000. Appreciate it a lot. But at the end of that video, I loosely mentioned how I felt the Armory Pass was coming out, or how the Armory Pass coming out also let Valve have a tighter grip on the case market. And since then, multiple updates and leaks have come out that I kind of want to talk about in regards to cases and the Armory Pass, and how cases have changed substantially for Valve. For most of CS's history, the only way to obtain weapon cases was to get them from random drops at the end of a match or your weekly drop.
Охуеть.
There were a few exceptions like operation cases, but most of them were still obtained through a random drop. You just had to have an operation pass for it to be in the drop pool. Other operations had a separate system akin to a battle pass, which would let you get a set amount of cases over a certain amount of XP gained. But now, Valve has released the Armory Pass, which has two dedicated cases which are entirely unavailable from the drop pool and are only obtainable through the Armory Pass's currency, stars. But what led Valve to make that decision? Wouldn't gating cases behind the Armory Pass cause them to be open less, rather than being able to be dropped to the entire community? Well, that's where you'd be wrong. Before the Armory Pass, and this is still happening to this day, but the Armory Pass is currently combating it, CS cases were in a weird situation. If you played even just a handful of years back in CSGO, you'll remember that cases weren't even close to the prices that they reach today. Cases that were going for 3 cents are now going for close to $15 in some cases. So what happened? Way back when, CSGO players could get more than one drop per week. That includes weapon skins, graffiti, but even cases as well, where you could sometimes get 2 in 1 week. Naturally, bots were made to farm these drops. Valve then changed the random drop system to 1 drop per week in CSGO, and then in CS2, they changed the 1 drop per week to still 1 drop per week, kind of, but you got a pair package, a care package of 4, and you could choose 2 of the specific items that they would show. One guaranteed to be a case, one guaranteed to be a skin, and then the other 2 to be random miscellaneous garbage like graffiti, stat track swappers, whatever. Uh, None of these updates stopped bots from existing, but it did reduce the effectiveness of them while significantly reducing the amount of cases being dropped to real player and clanker alike. So you have less supply coming out, but the same slash similar demand as before, actually probably even higher. But let's imagine it's a similar demand as before. If not enough cases are dropping, eventually the population will get lower, and then the prices kind of start to rise, eventually to crazy prices. With their new system in CS2, most older cases got put into the rare drop pool, where the most recently released 5 remained in the active pool. The chance of getting a case in the rare drop pool is about 1%, and with 20 something cases being inside of that pool, a very negligible amount of them drop per week, and eventually cases were starting to be opened into being into an endangered species of cases, only being held on by the hoarders that aren't opening, and the scarce amount being sold on the C market and other marketplaces. Due to the disproportionate supply and demand, prices started rising. Because of the prices rising, most people decided to veer away from those cases. Not enough to make them get out of their low population range, but enough to where the actively dropping cases started getting more love, but then even the more common cases started launching in price, which then caused the whole case market to inflate even more than it already had been. The danger of prices of cases rising is bigger than it seems, at least in Valve's case. If cases reach a certain price, less of them will be open, and that means less money for Valve. But if cases aren't selling enough, sellers will lower the price to a point where people will buy them. So, what exactly is the point that I'm getting to here? The problem is that the point where people won't buy is too high. Valve makes money off of everything sold on their community market, skins, graffiti, cases, you name it. Their cut off of CS items, the entire, kit and caboodle, is 15% of the wholesale. So they're making 15 cents every $1 put into the CS Steam market. If you were Valve, you'd want consumable items like cases to fly around a few inventories before being consumed, because it'll just keep printing on money from that 15% wholesale from the community market before being opened. The problem herein lies from what happens more often as higher prices get introduced into the CS economy. That problem is third-party marketplaces. Would you want to pay more for the same thing? No? Then why use the Steam market? Third-party marketplaces have skins, cases, and all types of stuff available for sale on their marketplace for real money, not that Steam balance garbage, baby. And to make it better, it's cheaper to buy on third-party sites than it is to buy on the Steam market 99% of the time, and the Steam market has a price limit on how much you want to sell an item for. So if you have an item that people are willing to spend over $2,000 on, you'd be a fool not to sell it on these sites because you could get astronomically more money for your item. More than just the big boy skins, $5,000 crazy items get sold on these sites. Every type of skin an item does. A few cents? Well, it's probably 1 or 2 cents cheaper on CS blah blah blah.market.com, whatever. With lower priced items, however, most people will still opt to the Steam market due to the fact that 1, you don't have as big of a legitimacy/trust issue with Steam than you will with a third-party marketplace. And 2, it's just simply more convenient. Shift tab, community market, you're there. But when prices start to go higher and higher, you'll see more and more people will start moving over to these third-party sites. And guess what happened with cases? Their prices got higher and higher. And it's not just to save a couple of quarters on a purchase. The only items to be bought in bulk from your average CS enjoyer isn't going to be some random skin. It's going to be cases. Usually they're bought in bulk by most people, so you're not saving $1 on a $10 purchase if you're buying an expensive case. They're probably buying multiple, so it's more like saving $10 on a $100 purchase, which is a much more easy thing to get behind, going to a separate location rather than sticking to the Steam market with. So Valve is losing out on a lot of these sales from third-party sites. So what do? If they inflate the market with more of these rare cases to try and retain more on the Steam market, that could seriously damage their market and people's willingness to invest in skins. If Valve is willing to make a drastic change like that on a dime, why would anyone pay a meaningful price for cases? I think the Armory Pass is Valve's answer to the case problem. And it's obvious why when you look at the most recent case, the Fever case. The Fever case released this April and is exclusively available as a redeemable reward via stars on the Armory Pass, meaning that you cannot obtain this case through the weekly drop system. And holy shit, people cannot stop opening this case. What the fuck? Why? So the Fever case is hovering at about 1/3 of the entire open case population and has only really gone up, or open case population within the past few months it's been out, to be specific. But why? Few reasons. One, people really like the weapon skins in it. It has a cool Glock. Even a few of the purples, like the Deagle, has one of the only Zeus skins in the game with the Koi. Prince Dream, need I say more? And it has an AK skin. This is about as good as cases get, really. And it's not expensive. And there is a lot. I don't know how I forgot to put this, but it's also the only case to get chroma finishes on Shattered Web Knives. Okay, bye. Usually when there is a new case out that has stuff that people really, really want, the price stays higher. But the price is right around where the gallery case is sitting at, which is the first case they put in the Armory Pass, and is significantly more loved than the gallery case is. So what gives? Because the case is redeemable as long as you have the stars to purchase them, lots more of the Fever cases can be printed at will. If you remember, the Armory Pass costs $15.99 without tax and allows you to earn up to 40 stars by playing the game, and you cannot use any money to earn stars. So it can only be made by people who are playing the game and have the Armory Pass, effectively making the value of each star around 40 cents worth of money. 40 cents worth of money. That's the dumbest thing I've ever said in my life. You know what I mean. Each star is worth 40 cents. To the conversion rate, if we were going to compare it to the price at the Armory Pass, which gives you 40 stars, or the ability to earn 40 stars. I'm rambling. But each case in the Armory, the Gallery and Fever, the only two, both cost 2 stars, making its effective value around $80. Or, Jesus Christ, 80 cents. Due to this, anyone selling the cases right now isn't going to sell anywhere below an 80-cent return and can't sell too much higher than that because anyone can go and earn the stars themselves and get the cases that way. Any case on the Armory Pass is effectively at a fixed price range right now, and you measure its popularity and value not by its price, but by its population. How many people are making this case? For example, the much less desirable case in the Armory Pass, the Gallery case, is at the around the exact same price point as the Fever case, despite being open much less. But it is at a much lower population. So why is this good? For Valve, anyway. The Armory Pass lets them regain more control in the case market and lets them double dip on the profits from cases. So basically, before the Armory Pass and just in general, a case would get dropped in the game. What were the requirements to get a case drop in the game? It was, the $15 to play the game, slash get the Prime status, whatever, and then the case either gets put on the market, sold, or immediately opened. Cool. So the ones where it gets immediately opened, the only money that's really made is from the key sale. They only get that, 249 or 267 mine with tax included. But now they get for each Fever case requires at least 2 stars, which we've already set as a set value of 80 cents. So each Fever case that exists now has at least had 80 cents go to Valve in total. And there is a lot of them being opened. And then sometimes they'll get opened after they get created, which that case then stops creating money because it's been consumed. Or it'll go on market like plenty of other cases do, and then circulate. But each Fever case and each Gallery case and whatever subsequent case that they put on the market now, or they put on the Armory Pass that goes on the market, whatever, will always be making, as long as they keep the star price the same, about 80 cents. Also, now third-party sites will have an even tougher time, even with higher valued cases, because of the trade reversal Valve just added. Valve added a trade reversal feature that will allow anyone to reverse trades that they had made within the past 7 days, giving them a month trade suspension afterwards. This was made to counter scamming via, sussy phishing links and loss of control of account type stuff, and I don't really think we will see scamming in that form nearly as much as we did, because it was running rampant for literally over a decade inside the CS community, because it'll be pretty hard to keep someone out of their account for an entire week. So unless they don't realize that they've been scammed, it will basically be very hard to get people to... It won't be viable long term for those type of scammers. But this update also made it to where 7 days after making a trade, you have to wait 7 days before modifying or consuming any items listed. No scraping stickers, no applying stickers, no trading up, and most importantly, no opening cases, capsules, whatever, for 7 whole days. This affects cases much harder than it will skins because gambling is almost all the time super impulsive, and whether Valve admits it or not, cases is gambling. Don't get it twisted. Because it's super impulsive, and having to wait 7 days after a trade will discourage a lot of people from buying from third-party sites, at least in regards to cases, with a lot of those items, and just getting it directly from Steam, because community market purchases aren't effectively trades. They go into the community market void and then get sent into your inventory, and they don't have to follow the 7-day hold. This will 100% result in much more cases being purchased from the Steam community market over third-party sites since before the update, without a shadow of doubt. Giving Valve so much more control of the case market as a whole. I think we can expect a long stay of the Armory Pass and lots more Armory Pass exclusive cases. I think eventually cases that will fall out of favor will be removed from the pass, but I don't know if they will be introduced into the active drop pool or not, or if they will be just completely removed from the game. Who knows? Maybe they'll join the discontinued lineup. I don't think Valve would completely remove the cases, but I'm not Mr. Newell, so I can't say for sure. I haven't seen him since the last scuba expedition, so you'd have to ask and wait to ask him from the next time he comes up. I don't think that the fever case will leave anytime soon. It's printing way too much money for Valve to decide to remove it, but like everything else, we'll have to see. Also, an auction slash bidding system has been leaked about the Armory Pass, but lots of stuff is still unknown about that. I'm curious to see how that works and who you'd even be bidding against. Other people, about a random group of people, or a group, just period. I don't really know how it'll work, but I'll talk about it when it gets, a reveal or when it comes out or whatever. But yeah, that's about it. Like and subscribe, buy my merch, and I'll see you later. This is Brendan, and I still have no closer.